Good afternoon. I want to very go through this particular paper, which is AQA GCSE Language Paper 2, and it's looking at question 4. And I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. But first of all, I would just like to say that we have to always understand what the question is, but we have to understand the question in the context of the paper. And one of the elements in the paper is that the paper 2 is known as writers' viewpoints and perspectives. So straight away, we've got two writers, two sources, and they're writing about similar subjects, and they have a viewpoint. Now, in this case, viewpoint means an opinion. So the writers will have an opinion about what they're writing about, and they will have perspectives. Now, perspectives is almost the same meaning as viewpoint, but if we put it in the context of this particular question, viewpoint is an opinion, and perspectives in this case, the writers see their ideas from. So, for instance, the paper that this is based on here is a paper that involved James Cracknell and Ben Fogle on a race on an Atlantic Ocean race that was going to go on for 6 weeks, and they're in a rowing boat. And this was done in 2008, so it was a 21st century particular aspect. So there was a historical perspective, and the other viewpoint and perspective is written by an author called William Hudson, and he is basically bordering on the Victorian age. So we've got a different perspective and possible sort of opinion being born out of those historical differences. There are other perspectives as well that you have to identify. Sometimes articles are written by men, sometimes articles are written by women. And then we might have location as a different perspective. So when we look at perspectives, we have to understand that a lot of the perspectives are already inborn in the paper. Then there's something that they can't change their perspectives, but their opinions might vary because of those perspectives. So I hope that makes some sort of sense. So let's just look at the question. So for this question, you need to refer to the whole of the source A together with the whole of source B. We know it's 16 marks, and it's to compare how the writers convey. Well, when we look at that phrase, compare how the writers convey their different perspectives and feelings about their experiences at sea, we know that we have to look at how the writers are presenting those thoughts in their articles. And of course, that includes a word which means methods that writers use. And if we understand the methods, we can then incorporate these in our answers when we're writing about the comparisons. So this one is about the experiences of the sea, and it says compare their different perspectives and feelings. Now be careful with this element where it says different perspectives and feelings. The only thing that is different here is that it doesn't say different feelings. It doesn't say different perspectives and different feelings. So they might have different opinions, they might have different feelings, but it actually says different perspectives. And then it says in that bullet point, compare the methods the writer used to convey their different perspectives and feelings. And of course, whatever you do, support your responses with references to both texts. So we need to know what methods are. Now, we can sometimes feel very prescriptive, but we need to incorporate how a writer can create the article and what methods they use. And one of the ones is by using lots of descriptive language, imagery. So there are language elements that we have to look out for that go through each article, and we're comparing those kind of things, the way the writer writes. And then there are structural elements, how the writer builds tone, mood, tension, and all of those type of things. But methods, broadly speaking, actually means anything that the writer has deliberately incorporated in order to engage us as readers of those articles. So how do we go about this? Well, I tend to always think it's worth writing a like for like sort of paragraph for each source, rather than writing about one source and then writing about second source. So I would probably use a structure. Now, 16 marks, and I would be aiming to write 4 paragraphs of comparison. So one comparison could be at the beginning. So I could probably say at the beginning, Ben Fogle sets the mood by whatever, and by doing this, and probably referencing something. Then I might say, on the other hand, in source B, the writer has a different approach and does this and that. So when you're looking at the sources, try to work through them quite chronologically. It makes your thought processes easier. Now, to get the marks, you need to obviously pick out an idea, whether it's structure or language. It doesn't have to be like for like. You say you pick one structure reference in source A and then a structure reference in source B. No, that's not the point. You're looking at the beginning of each source and working your way through chronologically to see what the writer focuses on next and how they do that, etc., etc. So 4 paragraphs, and for a question like that has 16 marks, it's a big element of the paper too. So it's not quite as big as the question in paper 1, which is 20 marks, but there is a bigger question 3 in paper 2 that gives 12 marks. So 3 questions create 68 marks out of 80 in paper 2. And I've always been the person who says that we should do these exams back to front. So I would have started on question 5, and then I would be reading the sources after completing question 5 and really getting to know the comparison. So then we look at a second paragraph, a third paragraph, and a fourth paragraph of comparison. So you could have one at the beginning and one at the end. And how does the writer start? How do both writers end their articles at this point? And with the aim of getting those 4 marks. So I would imagine that you would probably spend no more than writing 200 words in each one and spending about 20 minutes. But it's about how you look at a reference and then possibly use it. So let's just go to one of the sources quickly and just see what we can see here. So we get a beginning where straight away it was still dark. We had at least 3 hours of darkness to go before daybreak. As always, I had the sunrise shift. The ocean had continued to build. So we could say there's a buildup of tension with the ever-increasing wind and knots. The swell had grown and conditions look. So all of that there is telling us quite a lot about the conditions that are building up at the beginning here. And using quite emotive language, like I begin to feel vulnerable again, shows us that this is probably foreshadowing a disaster that's going to happen. And then in the same sort of way, we could look at William Hudson, and starts off again, prophetic fallacy to an extent. The wind had blown a gale all night, and I had been hourly expecting that the tumbling storm shaken ocean, in which I'd taken passage to Patagonia, would turn over once and for all and settle down beneath the tremendous tumult of the waters. So there's a lot of doom and gloom there, foreshadowing a disaster, but with a different kind of perspective, because it's more historical. And there are different perspectives that William Hudson is a traveller. He is not in charge of the boat. He is at the hands of other people involved. And then you continue throughout the source, going through all these type of things there. Okay, so that is really pretty much what we can do. If I can stop sharing that. So it's about making sure that we compare how and we understand those methods. And it's not as difficult as you could imagine. It is actually quite straightforward when we look at the sources, but always focus on the detail of each paragraph. Don't pick out lots and lots of references. Better to pick out one reference that is related to the same thing and explain the impact on us as the reader of that, and then do the same with the other ones. I hope that was helpful, and I hope that you get some benefit out of this.